In the wake of accounts of torture and prisoner abuse in Abu Ghraib, how many times were prisoner abuse and torture inside this country mentioned? How many times was Attica, the Angola 3, Chicago's Area 2, or the San Francisco 8 mentioned? In this, an election year, how many times have stories on election integrity been written that inform and warn potential voters of the problems they might face at the polling place and what their rights are if they encounter them? When we read accounts that the CIA stationed psychological operations agents inside the newsroom at CNN, we must understand that the propaganda matrix is real. And the sad fact is that COINTELPRO could not have been as effective as it was without the cooperation and complicity of the corporate media known as the Fourth Estate. I read a very interesting piece recently that asked if the Fourth Estate is really a fifth column. During the 1999 Memphis, Tennessee trial on the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who joined the Black Panther Party members as a target of COINTELPRO and was murdered because of it. On November 30th, 1999, testimony in that trial reveals the lengths to which the government would go to eliminate a problem of conscience and the extent of cooperation between the government's operatives and the esteemed members of the journalistic community. The testimony on that date reveals the presence of the U.S. military operating inside this country in civilian clothing. Testimony from one such operative reveals special operations forces charged with assassinations, operating with instructions directly from the White House. The testimony included information on the role of Jeb Bush, who as governor of Florida saw to it that certain, quote, civilian operations went forward from the port of Miami, Florida, including drug shipments from Colombia into the United States. The testimony in Dr. King's trial starkly portrays the collusion of the paragons of the press with suppression and omission of important information regarding the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as well as in the efforts to smear him and the movement he was leading. The testimony of Bill Schaap is frightening reading about propaganda and disinformation in the information lifeline of this country. He testifies that approximately 1/3 of the entire CIA budget and hundreds of millions of FBI dollars are dedicated to media propaganda operations. That the CIA actually owned, at the time of the Church Committee hearings, about 250 media organizations and employed thousands of journalists actually on the CIA payroll. Mr. Schaap testifies that the FBI had friendly journalists at Associated Press, Copley News Service, U.S. News and World Report, the Atlanta Constitution, I believe they're here today, the New Orleans Times-Picayune, the New York Times, the Christian Science Monitor, and even the Washington Post, which is also here today. Schaap testified that Frank Wisner called control over information flows, quote, the great Wurlitzer. And what is to be made of the Brass Check TV claim that video they have posted, which I have viewed today, shows the prime ministers of Canada and Australia giving exactly the same speech in support of the US-led war in Iraq. The Prime Minister of Australia and the Prime Minister of Canada on 2 separate dates. It's available on the web at brasschecktv.com, and you can see them giving the exact same speech. Among the top 25 censored stories for 2009, according to Project Censored, include over 1 million Iraqi deaths caused by U.S. occupation. Security and Prosperity Partnership militarized NAFTA. InfraGard. How many of you have heard of InfraGard? The FBI deputizes businesses to spy on all of us. ILEA. Is the U.S. restarting dirty wars in Latin America? That's the International Latin American Academy. Seizing war protesters' assets. Cruelty and death in juvenile detention centers. Marijuana arrests set new record. And in light of the bailout blowout, Bush's real problem with Elliot Spencer. A recent immigration court case uncovered what is, according to Sibel Edmonds, who is probably the most gagged woman in the country right now, an illegal covert CIA operation involving the intentional Islamization of Central Asia using Turkey as its front for the purpose of establishing U.S. control over the vast energy resources of the region. All of this is to say that the corporate press do not inform us of the activities of our own government. Indeed, on Valentine's Day in 2003, a Florida appeals court ruled that the media can legally lie. So, if it's the truth or real information, we have to go elsewhere, not the corporate press. In this election year, don't expect talk about civil liberties or human rights. Don't expect discussion of full employment economy or even of a single-payer health care system, recently described by 5,000 physicians as the only morally and fiscally responsible way to deliver health care in this country. Now we learn that special surveillance units have been formed to track our hip-hop icons, as was done with our cultural icons of the past, including Paul Robeson and Bob Marley. No wonder we get more straight talk from political hip-hop than we do from today's journalists charged with informing the people of their voting choices and policy options. Artists like Immortal Technique,
that's right,
who writes in his song on the media entitled Fourth Branch, it's like MK Ultra controlling your brain. Michael Franti writes, we can bomb the world to pieces, but we can't bomb it into peace. And finally, Paris speaks to the character of our country when he sings, if you saw all the things that's wrong, would you stand tall and strong, or would you turn and walk away? You, the members of the Black Panther Party, saw all the things that were wrong, and you stood tall and strong. Thank you.